Welcome. My name is Sue Jeffers. Joining me today is Tim Utes. He is running for Minnesota House of Representative in 50A in, help me out, Tim, Columbia Heights.
Fridley, St. Anthony, and Hilltop.
Yes, and I'll tell you, this is we the people, and we need you, Tim. We need you so bad. We were sharing off air some of the things that are happening over at the Capitol, and it's driving us all crazy. Yes. Tell us what you're seeing over at the Capitol.
Well, I've seen a trend. I went there the last couple of days and sat in some committee hearings, and one of them had, in 45 minutes, they passed 17 bills. With
17 bills?
17 bills. And
in 45 minutes?
In 45 minutes out of committee. Some of them went to the House floor for passage, and some of them went to another committee. But what shocked me is how it was almost like it's running sandwiches through a machine. It was unbelievable that there was lobbyists who were introducing and proposing the bills. Once in a while, a representative would come down as a bill sponsor to speak, but there was no public input. The public wasn't there. The lobbyists were there, passing bills to limit and restrict and remove our freedoms and liberties, but the people weren't there.
Is there anyone over in St. Paul that is looking out for we the people?
A few, but very few. In fact, I'm concerned about some of the Republicans over there because some of the bills that were introduced and voted on, they should have called for a division and had an actual vote by member, at least to show that there was a division within the group. But most of the time, it was 3 or 4 Republicans or 6 Republicans would whimper opposition to a bill and it'd get passed. So. No.
Most concerning. Should upset people.
It really bothers me a lot because if we're going to carry the Republican label, then we need to carry it in principle on these committees. That's why we're there, to represent the Constitution and the principles of the Founding Fathers. And it's not happening.
No.
At least put up a fight. But for whatever reason, I didn't see that happening in the last couple of days down there.
But you're going to fight for us. You're going to fight for we the people.
It's not going to be pretty, but I'm going to be down there doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's standing up for constitutional law.
You mentioned to me earlier that when you're out on the street talking to the people, that people are furious. They're really angry. They're angry at Republicans and Democrats, and it sounds like we have good reason to be angry at the people that we've put in office. Do you want to just tell people real quick why you decided to run for House of Representatives?
I found out that the parties don't always give us the best candidates in 2008, and so that's why fundamentally that's why I decided to run. I said I can't sit back anymore and go in November and assume that we got the best candidates. And the process already started for this year in 2010. It started back in February, where delegates are selected, and those delegates move up to different levels in both the Democrat, Republican, Constitutional, Independent parties. They move up through their ranks and they pick candidates and vet candidates, asking questions and try and hold them accountable to their particular party's principles. Doesn't always happen very well. So that's basically why I ran. I'd had enough. It was time to step up, and I learned the school of hard knocks that you have to participate. That doesn't mean everybody runs for the legislature, but it means that somebody has to step forward and everybody else has to support them and find a good candidate. So.
Well, I want to thank you for running, and all the people in 50A are very lucky to have you as a candidate. Definitely.
There's more and more people finding I'm out there, and they're jumping on board.
Well, they can see your jacket
everywhere.
You
can't miss this. This is the best.
I love on the side. I don't know if we can get a shot of this. The Constitution is not a suggestion.
This has been the funnest thing. People walk up to me and go, "You're absolutely right." And of course, I say, "Well, then give me a check or come help my campaign." And that doesn't always work, but at least I get them engaged in the thought process. So.
And hopefully they will.
Yes.
Hopefully they will. So we've seen a lot of bad bills already moving through the legislature. They've been in session about a month now.
Yes.
And just recently, of course, they passed the bonding bill a second time. Let's remember the first week or two, they passed a $1 billion bonding bill.
$1.2 billion, yeah.
Governor Pawlenty vetoed it. They came back, and we did not have a veto override, so they put it in the closet for a while, and then they brought it back, and they made it just about $1 billion, and it passed yesterday.
And apparently it's going to the governor for his signature. Now,
with just a few line item vetoes.
Now, I remember last time he said if it was over $600 million, $650 million, he would veto the bill. I'm assuming from what our discussions were, it's over $650 million.
Oh yes, well over it's well over $800 billion.
And this is where we have our problem. This is called the compromise, and either you're going to stand on the principles and vote that way and stand up for something, or you're not going to stay. It might as well be $3 billion, because you're still violating the principle of what of your word that you said before. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice, but when you have choices, as in this case, the governor is the leader of the state. Our bond ratings in jeopardy. It actually it was dropped by, I think it was Moody's a few weeks ago. But this bonding bill is not helping us. Now, I understand all the emotions and everything involved in a bonding bill and getting people to work. And in fact, you know, my industry, construction, is probably getting hit the worst of all industries across the state. And so my industry is all for the bonding bill, and I understand that. And there's some legitimate places that state government has. There's constitutional places the government has to spend money, like roads and bridges, and choo-choo trains are far down that list. But there are some fundamental issues. Now, if there was going to be a bonding bill, an appropriate amount that the state could legitimately afford, focused on the core issues and not bike trails and Bemidji and all this other stuff that's in the bonding bill, would be an appropriate place to have a bonding bill.
There's millions and millions of dollars to acquire land for bike paths. There's, I want to say, $25 million for civic centers in St. Cloud, Rochester, and Mankato, I believe.
Yes.
To me, a state that has a $5.2 billion deficit, this seems very, very irresponsible.
In the next biennium, it's $8.5 billion and rising in the next biennium, which nobody's even talking about today. But I want to step back real quickly on your issue about buying property. One thing that people don't realize is, as the state acquires real estate around the state, in any county or wherever it is, once that acre is taken off of the public or the private sector rolls and put in a public sector, it no longer collects taxes. Now, the governing organizations within that county do not change their budgets, do not reduce their budgets based on lost revenue from property that's acquired by the state or the county or the city. So that puts the rest of the pressure on the remaining private sector to pick up the slack of those acres that are taken off of land. Now, that's the downside that nobody's really talking about the public sector acquiring private land for public use.
And right now, the Department of Natural Resources is overseeing 5.6 million acres of land that's taken off the tax rolls.
And they don't have the management people in place to even manage that. There was an article in the Star Tribune, I think a week ago, about that they don't even know if anybody built a shack on their property or not, because they don't have enough people to manage the land. Try and imagine managing 5,000 acres, let alone, how many acres did you say there were?
5.6 million
acres. Yeah. All over the place, scattered over the state. 5 acres here, 10,000 there, or whatever it is, but yeah.
Incredible.
It's incredible to even try.
So Minnesota, of course, has a requirement in place, part of our constitution, state constitution, that says we have to have a balanced budget every biennium. And now I want you to repeat to the viewers again, this session, this 2 years, it's $5.6 billion in the hole. What is it the next two?
Oh, just to clarify, it's technically not in the Constitution, the required balanced budget. It's in our state statutes.
State statutes. Thank you.
In this biennium we're just finishing up, last year we were $6.4 billion short, and between last June and now we came another $1 billion, $994 million. I'll give them credit, $994 million short as of the February forecast. They have to correct that by June 1st in order to finish up the balance of the coming year. The next biennium was in November's forecast $8 billion in a hole. When you add all the other things, the core is $5 billion, but when you add the inflation and property tax shifts and all the other gimmicks that they did to balance the budget last year and put it into the future years, when that's all added up, it was $8 billion in November, and in February it's $8.48 billion. So it's actually increased $500 million in 6 months or 4 months or whatever it is. That's projected for the next biennium, which is 12 and 13.